It's time for another YouTube video. So this time I am going to be talking about preformed dental appliances. Preformed is going to be meaning that they're not customized, they're already fabricated. So there's no impression needed, it's just ready to go to pop into your child's mouth. So most likely for these appliances, the goal is some sort of myofunctional retraining. As a quick reminder, the summary of myofunctional type therapies are going to be to establish nasal breathing, a good lip seal, proper tongue posture, and correct swallowing pattern. So as a general rule, that's what these appliances are, kind of tools to help retrain that. So they may be standalone treatments, or they may be used by speech therapists, myofunctional therapists, or others. So I'm going to run through some of the more common brands just so that you have maybe a little bit of a takeaway of what are some of the differences and what makes one more appropriate in one scenario versus another. So MyoMunchie I'm starting with first because MyoMunchie is one of the ones that actually has a size available beginning at 6 months old, which I think sets it apart a little bit. In that size, it's the only size that's not available for parents to order directly. That does have to be provided by a professional. However, the other sizes, as a child gets older, a parent can just pop online, pop on their website and order. MyoMunchie is essentially more of kind of, I call it like a chew toy. It's meant to be actively chewed on for about, could be 10 to 20 minutes per day. This appliance is good to kind of counteract a lot of our societal situations where we're not using our muscles like we should. So kind of just promoting good use of facial muscles, promoting good development, or it can be really great for habit breaking. If you're trying to get rid of thumb sucking habits or pacifier habits, kind of having an alternative substitute. Next, Healthy Start. Originally, that was one of the first to market in the US. It used to be called Orthotane and got rebranded. Healthy Start and Tooth Pillow, I've put them kind of in a similar category. We're going to talk about that. There is first, these are more complex systems, these two. There is first going to be kind of a passive habit correction type phase. So the appliance that goes in the child's mouth that they try to sleep in overnight, maybe add in 1 to 2 hours per day plus overnight. They don't need to chew into this first appliance. It's just meant to start building better swallowing habits and otherwise. And after that kind of more passive phase of just letting the appliance sit in the mouth, getting used to it, there will be other appliances that eventually, when a child is older and they start getting more of their adult teeth, there are certain appliances that are going to guide the eruption of the adult teeth. So I think these systems are pretty cool. They do more than just the habit correction phase. They're really influencing growth to another level. And those do have to be provided. Well, Healthy Start you get through a dental office. They are expanding to other types of providers too. Tooth Pillow is technically the Vivos eruption guidance system. And that's going direct to consumer. So I think you can either go to a dentist or you can go direct to consumer for something like this. I think that's pretty cool. It's going to open up access to care for a lot of patients who otherwise can't find providers near them. But it looks like it'll be direct to consumer, still having observation with a professional, which is an important component for something like that that's more complex. And then MyoBrace is considered a passive appliance, so it's not necessarily something. They have a wide variety of appliances that fall into the category of MyoBrace. But generally speaking, these are the passive appliances. But That being said, activities are required in order to supplement and make the appliance be effective. So one of the things that sometimes I do hear dentists complain about is if they're trying to use strictly a myobrace to see some changes, sometimes it relies almost more heavily on compliance than some of the other systems. But additionally, I think one of the reasons why I see a lot of people gravitate towards myobrace is kind of in between phases. So if a kid had early expander orthodontics, and then they are kind of in between phase, then having a myobrace to help them gradually build some better habits and hold the progress that they've made while knowing that there's a good chance some other orthodontics might be needed in a second phase. And then some of the European-based products I just want to talk about because they are becoming more available in the US as well, and because I have some clients that I'm connecting with from all over the world. Froggy Mouth, originally based in France, is something that's a little bit different. When you look at the shape of it, it's a little different than some of these other ones. It is only about 15 minutes per day use. So again, that can set something apart from a child who has to be compliant with this for somewhere between 2 to 12 hours or so. Even if part of that time sleeping, that's still a bigger commitment in a way from a time standpoint. But this is going to be swallow retraining, and it's very much a subconscious process. It's kind of interrupting what has been the old habit and creating new neural pathways. I did see that back when I was in Orlando at the Collaboration Cures Conference in September, that Joy Moeller of the AOMT is now starting to promote these in the US as well. So it's definitely getting more traction as an option in the US. I think it's interesting to note that Froggy Mouth could be an option for a child who maybe has a stronger gag reflex. All of these are options for a child who has the gag reflex, but like would be used to kind of desensitize a child with a gag reflex. So working with oral motor therapists or otherwise who can help them get over that rather than just sticking this big appliance in. But because Froggy Mouth focuses on the lips more than the tongue, the result affects the tongue, but where the appliance is touching is more on the lips. I think it could be a more gentle option for a child who's struggling with a gag reflex or something or otherwise. Dentosophy is one that I learned about here in Portugal from a provider. She learned about it originally in Spain. I just actually read a book by their founder, and it was very eye-opening that there's a whole different way to think about how these appliances could influence our overall health. Both of these, Dentosophy and Cup, are European based, but they're really on a whole different level for looking at balancing the body, balancing posture, and looking at neurological health. So I think that that's something that's really interesting. I don't know if the companies that are based in Australia or the US or otherwise, if those other products claim to be able to have these effects, but I've never heard them make that claim. So, and then Nuvola, lastly, I want to mention is kind of a hybrid system that has something like the previous two, the Dentosophy and the AMCOP companies. So there's still kind of a activator appliance that's being used, but then it is kind of a hybrid in that it's got more of like similar to Invisalign, but with some functional features. So yeah, there's not a lot of providers for that system yet in the US, but they're huge in Italy and they're spreading. I think these are interesting things. And Nuvola also has the stress on the neurological component. So that's just something I've seen to be really interesting, is that Europe tends to focus on that neurological component a bit more. Hopefully you found some interest and something helpful in kind of looking at these as a quick overview and some of the differences. Thank you.